Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the glistening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on to victory.
Ndewo. Welcome to another episode of Ndomoto. Ndomoto is an Igbo Nigerian word that means words of wisdom that we share. Sometimes I share by myself, or sometimes I share with a guest. And that words of wisdom that you can add to your repertoire. All of us have a whole collection of words of wisdom that we've learned from the community, from our parents, from the family. So I know you're full of it, but you know you can never know too much. So here we try to share as much as we possibly can to add to what you already know. I have a wonderful guest with me today. Well, she's not really a stranger to you. We've had shows together numerous times, but I couldn't think of a better person to have the conversation today about Black history. My guest. But before I bring her forward, I just want to just share just a few little thoughts so that we can go into the discussion today. As you well know, and you'll be amazed at how many people who really don't even know what Black History Month is about. It is today that we are spotlighting Black history. And it opened as a week-long celebration in 1915 when Carter G. Woodson created the Organization for the Study of Negro Life and History to pay tribute to the growth of the people in the wake of the liberation, to examine, the wake of liberation, and examine the progress and future of African American people. Now, I guarantee you there's not too many people who know that. They just know it's Black History Month. And I think it's important, as we're celebrating Black History Month, that we also let our children know what it's all about. We've got a lot of people right now trying to tell us that we don't matter. Take, for instance, in Florida, the governor, Ron DeSantis, feels that African history is irrelevant and it should not be taught. And so when we can teach all the other histories, the German, the French, the Spanish, all of that, that you can't teach African history because it has no relevance. Well, it may not have any relevance to him, but it certainly has relevance to the world. African Americans and Africans everywhere taught the world so much. A lot of things that we are all celebrating today came from the Black mind. So let us not forget that. Let us not let anybody's opinion about us define us or become our reality. Black history is significant. And quite frankly, Black history is American history. Black history is world history. And if they don't want to know it, as long as we know it, we're good. We have to agitate to make sure that everybody, because it's not just a Black children that need to know, white, purple, or green, or whatever colors they are, everybody needs to know about Black history. Because you see, when you're in the dark about something, you tend to repeat it, or you tend to do things that you don't know are inappropriate. And quite frankly, it stagnates your growth, your mental growth. So it's important that we teach Black History Month. Even if Ron DeSantis or the school board in Florida doesn't think that we should celebrate it. But we know better, don't we? The purpose of communication about African history is so significant. You see, when Black History Month rolls around, we tend to engage in, and we advance commercialism that accompanies it. But for me personally, as the world turns, as it were, I've begun to seek a more than the 1 month public relations commercial, because it's a racket now. Companies go after it, and then they showcase black heroes and sheroes, and they showcase anything during this month that would draw the attention of Black people, all for the purpose of making money. And then, unfortunately, at the end of the day, when Black history starts, we start hearing all these information, start seeing all the information in classrooms or wherever about Black history. But at the end of the day, the 28th of the month, Black history starts to fade in the minds of those who have made it a 1 month activity. So it is important, for my part, I feel it is very, very important that we make a celebration, not just one day, but 365 days of the year. We must take care also, when we celebrate Black history, we must take care of our health. Our health is important, in as much as it's important to accentuate all of the inventions and historical contributions. We need to be a healthy people, because quite frankly, we are suffering from a lot of health challenges, diabetes. Statistically, Black people are the ones who suffer most from diabetes, sickle cell anemia, which is hereditary, heart disease, CKD, chronic disease, kidney disease, and mental challenges due to our environment sometimes, due to what we eat and due to what we hear and what we pay attention to. So quite frankly, for Black History Month, my recommendation to all of you today is make it also about you, about your health, about everything that is you. And not just what they did in the past, but what you're doing right now, and what, if you're here, if you're healthy, you can achieve in the future. For me, 365 days a year, I carry the highs and lows of my African experience, and I have no mechanism over what prompts all its flows and currents. I've realized I can only exist in it, and thus energetically work to alter, if I can, the parts of my melanin endowment that do not attend to my needs any longer. Instead, I personally want to redefine for myself what Black History Month means and how to celebrate it with the community in mind. What I do and how I behave impacts the people around me. Black history also can be gleaned from who I am. When people see me and they see the way I conduct myself, they may exaggerate and think that this is how we are. So it's important that we carry ourselves with the dignity that we should. This is what we are, after all, are the descendants of a great people, kings and queens. Yes, indeed. If you don't know it, you should know it. So it is imperative that we do certain things that honor our heritage, so that when people see us, like I said earlier, our positive conduct, our positive achievements, that defines to others about what Black history is. When I was growing up, I must admit, and attended school in Nigeria, I had no inkling about Black history. Tell you the truth, I didn't. Not outside of my home. My parents certainly did a whole lot of work to ensure that I understood my history. But outside very little of my history was taught to me in school. Nobody taught me in school about the great Africans who made a change in Africa, who did fantastic things in Africa. Nobody taught me about the trials and tribulations of my brothers and sisters outside of the continent, in America, in the Caribbean, all of those. Nobody taught me that. I was fascinated by Black history, quite frankly, after I came to the United States, because pretty much what we learned at home was about European Eurocentrism. I was fascinated by Black History Month when I came here. I dare say there were more individuals that wanted to make it clear to me, believe it or not, that Black history is about Black America, which is true. As I indicated earlier, the purpose of it was to evaluate, after liberation, the achievements of the African Americans, and also to address their future condition. But I do disagree that it should end there. Africans did not drop from the sky to the United States. They had the beginning, and it was Africa. Our collective journey began in Africa many years ago. So for me, Black History Month incorporates who I am on the African continent and who I am now in the United States as I continue to try to understand my world. And so we're going to have a wonderful conversation today. It gives me pleasure to bring in my co-host today, Dr. Simone Monet. Hello, Dr. Monet. Happy birthday.
Very good.
Did you see what I tried to pick up some of the African colors, the black from my head tie, the earrings, the red. I couldn't find green. So, but green is in my mind, I said.
Yes.
How are you?
Very good.
Just for the record, I decided to do this program. I didn't promote it or anything. I just wanted to have a conversation that we can share eventually, but circulate it in the media. So I thought I would just get up this morning and have a conversation with you about Black History Month. So tell me, what does it mean to you? What does Black History Month mean to you?
Well, Black History Month means to me, it's not necessarily a celebration. It's a reminder of the justice that we need to still fight for the things that my ancestors have never received justice for. And it is for me to continue to fight not only for the justice, but also to preserve our history and all of the wonderful things that African Americans have done here, that they, especially the things we have not gotten credit for. A lot of things we have done, other people are getting credit for, and they look at it as, okay, these were my slaves, so they created this, they built this was their idea, but I owned them, so I will continue to get the credit. But it reminds me again to continue to fight for justice, continue to fight for reparations of my people and the things they've been through. I remember listening to stories. My grandparents on my mother's side is from Mississippi. And I remember hearing so many stories of the atrocities that happened and nothing happening, nothing being done, women being raped. You could not go to the police. There was no justice, and it's still to this day no justice for those things. My grandmother, she came to pass. Her mother was the maid, and my great grandmother, she looks like a white woman. You could not tell that she was African American, and because it was so hard for African Americans, many times my grandmother, which was her daughter, would often say, "I don't know why she didn't pass." Why? But when you pass, you have to neglect, disown your whole family and pretend she was a white woman. I don't know why she did not do that in that climate at that time. But I feel that my family should gain justice. And every time Black History Month comes around, I'm not really looking at all of the history. We can learn about the history. I think that's important. But we also have to settle what has not been settled yet.
Right. That's right. That's right. And then, right now, it's amazing to me how, and I do hope that African Americans will have to figure out how to intercede, the abuse of about who you are for people, for governors everywhere to try to state that you're insignificant and put in rules and regulations that actually takes you all the way back. It's not enough for me to be, to be celebrating Black history. And yet we're surrounded with such bigotry that wants to take you back to the past. And I don't even see the uproar, quite frankly. I saw a little bit of it, but it should be a whole lot more when you find that Black history can be taught in class. Books are being burned. Anything that refers to even Black leaders is discouraged from school. So Dr. Monet, my question is, if I send my child to school to learn, not just to learn about everything else, I would expect that he should at least learn something about himself. Now, if they're not teaching him about himself, and my question would be, if you can't teach African history, you can't teach anything that contains Black images, Black concepts, Black thought, what are they learning?
Well, actually, and it's the same as when I grew up. They're only teaching certain things. They're not teaching about the atrocities. They're not teaching about really what happened. And actually, sometimes it lowers the self-esteem of our people, some of the things they are teaching, because I remember growing up and we just had a little chapter in our history book that spoke about Black history. And that only talked about us being slaves. It did not talk about all of the wonderful accomplishments that we did, all of the inventions, all of the things that we did to contribute to this society. Without African people, African Americans or African people, we would not have America now. In many areas in the world, in the Caribbean and all of these different places, it would not exist as it does now. Our ancestors have paved the way to what we see now. And a lot of those things are never discussed with our children. It creates a communal sense of low self-esteem, because we can't see from the schools our value, who we are, and what we have done. We're always learning about someone else's accomplishments.
And making it law. They're making it law. They're making it law so you can't vote. Now, if you look at Black history, that's part of the history, the civil rights movement. But what is happening to that? Now, many people can't vote. All kinds of obstacles are put in front of them so they can't vote, to suppress the minority vote. And now anything that has to do with the LGBTQ, the Black people, people of color, anything that's outside of Europeans is the only thing we can learn. Because they're not shutting down German programs or French programs or Spanish. They're not. All those are still intact. But the AP advanced what is that? AP advanced placement, okay, in Florida, they struck that down. African American program. As a matter of fact, I was watching a news program where the young people were talking about how the Black history, they were so excited because in the school they're not learning anything about Black history. So when they heard about the AP, the advanced placement African American history, they were just ecstatic. They couldn't wait for that to happen. Now Ron DeSantis, in his infinite wisdom, decided, as a matter of fact, we're not going to allow that to be taught, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because it has no value. Now, think about that. What do you mean it doesn't have any value? But I challenge you, though, Dr. Monet, if they are not teaching your child what that child should know, it is suicide to keep them in that school.
Yes.
That's just the bottom line. Common sense is common sense. If they are going to be taught and teachers are nervous, listen, teachers are so nervous. Many of them are quitting, obviously. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to address students. They don't even know what do they even say to African American child who may come to them and ask them a question? Children will ask questions. I don't care what you put in terms of your laws. A black child is going to go up to a teacher thinking that the teacher is supposed to teach him and ask him a question. Now, these teachers don't know what to do. They don't know how to answer. They can't even refer the child. That's a crime to refer a child to a black book to answer their question, to address their curiosity. So this whole thing, we are celebrating Black history, and you find all these corporations got all these visuals about Black history, and yet a lot of them are behind this nonsense. A lot of them are the ones that are paying giving money to some people in the government in Florida, in all these some of these southern states. They are behind it. But then as soon as the 28th of February goes by, boom, everything is pulled out. I feel very strongly, parents, African-American parents, do whatever you have to do to ensure that your children do not lose sight of the importance of who they are. It is an imperative. Teach it at home. Stop being so bashful and negative about African history in every aspect of it. Make sure your child knows it. If they don't teach it in school, you teach it. It's about you. It's not about them. Frankly, my parents did not wait for me to go to school. I just said to you, they didn't teach me anything about African history. But I tell you what, my mom did, my father did. What I know today is really from them. And of course, when I grew older, I started reading, right? So, and then, it's all over the internet. What are they going to do? Pull those information down from the internet? That's what's so stupid about it. These young African children, they're not dumb. If they have curiosity, they know to go to the internet. Are they going to shut that down? No, they're not, but I still feel we should agitate and demand that it's taught in schools, because otherwise, I'm going to tell you very honestly, I don't know what I'm sending my child to school for. I don't know what I'm sending them for. They can't have books. There are some places that you can't have books for fear of what it is, what it says in there, because we're afraid to upset white children. Give me a break. These white children are not stupid either. They want to know. This is their world. You have some old people who should be relegated back to the Stone Ages, making decisions for young people who are full of curiosity about not just themselves, but about their world. You're limiting their knowledge. Limiting their knowledge doesn't make them better. They're still going to have to face the world, and they'll do so diminished. They will do so with no information.
Yes.
But Black history, my brothers and sisters, it shouldn't be taught in the schools alone. Fight for it to be taught there. But let me tell you, the job is yours. The job is yours as parents. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree that it is the job of the parents, because we have to look, like behind me is an elephant. We have to look at the elephant in the room. And we have to come to an understanding that slavery is not over for the African person here in America. And if it was over, it would have been settled. There would have been justice. We would not have these fights over our children learning about their history and learning positive things about their history. When in slavery, as everyone knows, one thing and one weapon that they use is that they kept slaves illiterate. We're just now, not too long, able to gain an education. I remember my grandmother, she could only go to an 8th grade education. I remember she telling me how when she was grown, she had 5 kids. They opened it up. She was living in Detroit at this time. With 5 kids, she went from an 8th grade education all the way to a bachelor's degree. And so because they opened it up. And you know how extremely hard that could have been, but she appreciated the fact that she was finally given the opportunity to gain an education. Now, the thing is, we have to understand, when I'm talking about the elephant in the room, that we are still being suppressed. We are still being oppressed. I'm sorry. We're still being oppressed. And so these are just examples of how we're being oppressed, but it's in a more covert way. It's not right there in your face. We don't have the fountain that says colored person only. We don't have, or we can't, all of these restrictions that we had in the past. We're not seeing our people hanging from a tree, but then we're controlled by media. What do we have as far as enriching our children with a sense of self-confidence of who they are? We have nothing, and you're trying to take away the only thing that maybe we did have, the little that we did have, because in the media, what are they showing and depicting African American people as? How do they depict us? It's not in a positive light. For a very short time, I remember when I was younger, you had the Cosby shows. You saw lawyers that were Black. You had doctors that were Black. You had, a different world where you saw Black people going to colleges and things like that. But now I rarely see any of that. The only thing I see is us being over-sexualized. It's like it's going back, it's reversing. We're a minstrel show when it comes to media right now. And then you're saying that's a type of control, controlling us, controlling the minds of our culture, of our youth. We're being controlled through these covert mediums, or however you want to say it. We're being controlled mentally. Our youth are being controlled through the music.
Yes.
Through the music.
Yes.
Also, we used to have positive music. You might have had hip hop and things like that, rap, but you had your negative, but you also had the positive. Now,
that's right.
We are not, because Black people don't control the media. What is depicted of us is over-sexualization, drugs, all of these things that can destroy our community.
Yes.
And then you want to take our history,
that's right,
the many things we have done for this country. It is insulting. It is insulting.
Yes, indeed, it's very insulting. But we have to ask ourselves: Are we? What role are we playing? Are we allowing this to happen?
It is insulting.
Are we allowing this to happen? I think that we are. I think part of the problem is that we're allowing it to happen. We have the responsibility. We have the responsibility to ensure it's not happening. But I've got to be honest with you. It's almost like during the time of voting. Some of us put it in the hands of others. Let other people handle it. And so they don't do. One of the things that I said earlier, and you're in the healing business. I think that a lot of our people are impacted by what society is doing, and that's why some of these health challenges come to be. Some of us eat poorly, maybe because we're depressed, so we don't eat fruits and vegetables, those things that are necessary for us to be well. That's why we have diabetes and heart disease and all that sort of thing. And what do you think in terms of now, from a clinical clinical perspective? I certainly know depression may cause you, not everybody, some people, depression causes them not to eat. Some people, depression causes them to overeat, but eat the wrong things, you see. So when you talk about Black history, I think that I look at health themselves, that if you're part of history, make sure that you are in good shape, in good order. What is your recommendation? And it's just recommendation, obviously, to people and how to take care of themselves so that they don't have these things. So Black history is not just about inventions and all that sort of thing and greats of the greats. It's also about you. If you're going to be part of history in the future, you've got to be healthy. You've got to be able to live long enough to become part of history. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. We must gain a quality of health. But I think that we have to, and I know it from my experience in dealing with people with trauma, most African Americans carry a generational trauma passed down from one generation to another. We hold a lot of secrets. And we're sick as our secrets. And a lot of times, due to the trauma that has been passed on and that we have experienced in our life, we have dis-ease in our body, including our diets, the way we eat, carrying overweight and obesity being some of that. I've had many clients that has lost tons of weight without trying after releasing trauma. So we have to get to the root of the issue. And we also have to fight that the bad foods, the fast foods and all of those things are taken out of our communities.
Mm-hmm.
We're oversaturated with foods that are killing us.
And it's
we
intentional.
Need to demand,
It's intentional.
It's intentional. We need to demand that this is not going to be in my community. We have a Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, Wendy's, all of the fast food restaurants, one after another. You can't even go one block without all of those fast food restaurants, you know? And it was just like I heard Donald Trump said, and I thought it was very interesting. He said, well, McDonald's and the fast food restaurants is feeding America. Well, it's definitely feeding Black people because we have it all in our community. And not only feeding, we shouldn't say feeding, killing our people, because you have the fast food restaurants and you have the dialysis centers here in Detroit, where there's a fast food restaurants, dialysis.
Yes.
I mean, we're sick. We're sick. We need to get over the trauma. We need to release a lot of the secrets, the family secrets. We have to stop that. Yes. We have to stop keeping everything in. We're sick as our secrets. Be more transparent about some of the things that may have happened so that we're able to heal from that, because we're responding as a result of those traumas. And because we're responding as a result of those traumas, we're passing that on, because we may, without even knowing it, be traumatizing our children. We may be traumatizing the next generation. It may not even be your children. You may go be in management at your job and you're traumatizing people that you work with because you're carrying this trauma. You're carrying these secrets. You're mad. Like they say, a lot of times we have the stigma, Black women have the stigma of angry Black woman because we have not been willing to heal.
And on the other hand, it's also a perception of us. You know, it's a perception of us that we buy into. Okay, people tell us, you know, you're an angry, and it's traumatizing when you want to be yourself and you can't be because you're afraid that somebody does not describe you as you've said, the angry Black woman. You have to hold things back. You know, you can't move forward out of fear. We have to get to the point that we understand that those are labels. You have the right to speak your mind. You see, when we talk about, for me, when I talk about Black history, going beyond the aggrandizement of achievements and you know, those are all important, but it's also important that we celebrate us.
Yes.
Okay. There's an African proverb that says, "Mma raso mma rasa ulo apwezi." That means that beauty starts from within before it can go out. You know, so we need to get in the business of looking at ourselves and encouraging ourselves to be all that we can be, good health, and stand walk in holy boldness, for heaven's sake. I can tell you, like when I go to schools and I'm speaking to children, the Black children are the least likely to ask me questions. No, think about that. Why is that the case?
Well, that's the case. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I remember when I was in Michigan and I used to go to some schools, this particular inner city school that I was invited to come to, and the children were very aggressive, the African-American kids. You know, there was just absolutely no sense of calmness in that room. They were jumping off the walls, cursing at each other. I mean, it was almost like it was an expectation. And the teachers are standing around saying absolutely nothing. And as a matter of fact, they were looking at me like, you wanted to come here. Look at them, So most of the teachers are Caucasian, and the children are Black, and they are just absolutely unruly. And then I was supposed to make a presentation. It was a YES program, Youth Empowerment Series. And so I was asked to come into the room and talk to these children. In my mind, I'm saying, talk to them about what? These kids are out of control. You can't go to a Nigerian school and see children acting like that, because they are taught to have control. You have to be in control, in charge of yourself. Some of these homes don't have parents in them, or maybe one parent. And so one parent tends to baby them, not teaching them. When unfortunately, sometimes when we don't have a father in the home, the children don't learn, some of the things, discipline that they should know. Some moms spend a lot of time trying to baby them and cuddle them. Do you understand? So those things that will teach them control sometimes is missing. And then the teachers misconstrue it as these kids are wild. There's something that's causing that. So you know what I did? I did an exercise. I came to the school with a bunch of circles, all right? A whole bunch of circles. Green, purple, red, all different colors. And I laid them all down. I mean, there were many, many of them. I laid them all down. And so to get the attention of the children who were by this time, the teachers were like, just, hey, what are we going to do? They just had given up and they were not talking and everything. And so I started speaking in my language. Well, I wasn't speaking English, was I? The kids stopped like, what is she? Who's that? What is she saying? So I just continued to talk to them in my language. And as I did that, they started to stop to listen. It was something different. So when I got their attention, I introduced myself, and I told them we were going to do a little exercise. And I made sure, I told the teachers, I want you to observe this exercise, because this is very important that you see what's going on, right? This time, the young children, they're all sitting down. And then again, I told them to hold their right ears. If you hold your right ears, you'll hear the footsteps of the ants. Well, that's a curiosity right there. Everybody wanted to hear, what is this woman talking about? Because she's from Nigeria. Maybe there's a reason why she's saying that we can hear she knows that we can hear the footsteps of the ants, which is a misconception about us from Africa. We seem to know all these magic things. But anyway, everybody held their right ears. And so then I said, any child in this room that came to school today, they had not had anything to eat, I want you to come and stand on the yellow circle. About 60% of the students in the class were running around trying to find the yellow to stand on. 60%. Then I said, any one of you who have observed somebody you care about being shot, killed, or brutalized in any way, about 48% of the students stood on the green. I say, any one of you here that have been sexually molested, stand on the red. About 70% stood on the red. I say, any one of you here that has seen a friend killed, shot, go stand on the black. And they did. In other words, the place was emptied. Everybody was standing on one circle or the other. Some of them somebody asked me, well, can I stand on another circle? Because I experienced this one, I experienced this. I can't just stand on this one. The whole room was literally emptied. Everybody was on a circle. Only maybe a few. So I said to the teacher, when you look at these children, this is what they're standing on. This is the pain they come in here with. But you're quick to judge them. So for me, Black history is a good time to start helping our children, to start teaching them, to start molding them, because tomorrow they are going to be leaders. And what they portray is what the world sees, and draw the wrong conclusions if you don't know about them. So the children, at the end of the day, they wanted to know. I told them, I say, look at each other. Look at all of you. Some of you, most of you are standing on one or two circles. That's the pain that your classmate is experiencing. When you call him name or call her names, when you abuse her, this is the reason why she's the way she is. If she doesn't have nice clothing, don't judge her. Maybe she lives with a family member, a mother or a dad who has no means to give him what your own parents can give you. We need to support each other. We are African people. It is our responsibility to support each other, not to speak ill about each other, not to hurt each other's feelings. And you, the teachers, I want you to see these babies, what they have to live with. So when you teach them, have a little compassion. Don't judge them. So one bold little girl said, well, I have a question, Dr. Simiri. I said, yes. She says, well, I didn't hear the footsteps of the ants. You said we will hear the footsteps of the ants, and I've been holding my ear. So I asked her, I said, well, did you hear me speak today? She said, yeah, you said a whole lot of good stuff. I said, well, then you heard the ants, because I'm ants. And I was like, oh, man, are you kidding me? You got us, you got us. So anyway, Black history, for as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't be 306. It shouldn't be one day. It should be 365 days of the week where we learn about each other. Yes, learn about our history, but also learn how to improve our lives, particularly our children. Our children are traumatized, like you said. So much trauma in school. Black children don't know what they can say. They don't know what they can read. There's a particular school that has no books in the library. And yet we're sending our children in the morning to go to such an environment. For what? They are at a disadvantage. Children from other countries who are taught to learn about diversity in humanity, the American child is being stymied. The leadership here, UD said, the leadership here has failed the African Americans. They failed it. And we should not base anything on what they provide for us or lack thereof. We should provide for ourselves. You don't have to be rich to open your mouth to talk to your child. You don't have to be rich to sit at the table before the child eats and ask them to offer thanks to the Creator for what they have. You don't have to be rich to, before your child goes to bed, go and read a book to him or her and cuddle her and play games with her. You don't have to be rich. You don't need the school to do that. You do that. If you're a father, take the time. Find the time for your child. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how exhausted you are. When you come home, make time for that child. If you're a mother, no matter how exhausted you are, find time just to give that child, even if it's 10 minutes of your time. Black history is now. Black history is our children. And I'll let you continue. Go ahead, share more of your thoughts.
Yes, I think what needs to be, like I said, the elephant in the room, what never gets talked about during Black History Month, or very rarely, is our trauma. Mm-hmm. A lot of people judge us in our behaviors.
Yes.
And just like I tell many of my clients, I don't look at behaviors. I look at the root. What is causing that behavior? Just like you did when you went into the classroom with the children. They all had experienced great trauma. And not only them, you have to understand that those parents have experienced trauma. We don't know how that parent is mentally. We don't know what they're going through mentally in trying to raise that child. And so we have to take all of this into account, because other cultures of people, whenever there's a trauma or something going on in their community, people have compassion for that. When there was this shooting, if there's a shooting in the Caucasian schools, they'll say, let's get the counselors in. But how often do you hear about counselors coming into Black schools? How often do you hear that? We have some Black communities are like war zones. Kids are experiencing gunshots, killings, all types of things that are going on that is traumatic. But is the schools taking that in consideration and saying, let's bring in some mental health services for these children. Let's bring in mental health services for these parents. We need to, as a people, and I'm emphasizing this for this Black History Month more than ever, we need to heal from our traumas as African people. We're still being traumatized. We're still being traumatized. When we're talking about the maternal, you have to think about it. And I hope that other cultures of people is watching this, because you have to understand, stop looking at the behaviors that you may see on TV or wherever you see behaviors. A person, you may go drive by and someone's having doing behaviors that are not, just normal, or they're not something that they should be doing. Don't just look at the behaviors, look at why is that person doing that behavior. So we must heal that of which we have been. I mean, our society, America, has traumatized Black people, and it's still are still doing that. Now, when you talk about, now let's give some examples of that. One example: mothers, black birthing mothers are 4 times more likely to die during childbirthing. It is a crisis that is going on right now. It is recognized in the House of Representatives. The Black Maternal Caucus was developed because of this crisis, and they're dying of preventable causes because they are not being listened to, simply because they're not being listened to. They're telling the medical staff something is wrong, and they're hemorrhaging to death. That's the number one way that they're dying. The children, the infants are number one. Black infants are number one for dying in the hospitals. And besides that, we're experiencing police brutality. Police are actually killing Black men, and now also Black women are being experiencing police brutality. So when you're talking about this, you have to think that would be traumatizing to anyone. And then these same people have children.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even talking about, I talked about the mortalities of maternal Black women in the hospitals, but we're not even talking about some of the injuries that are happening. The injuries for Black women are number one, and some of those are not even reversible injuries.
Yes.
Mental health, we're number one now. Our youth, Black youth, are number one for committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we committing suicide? And then it's brushed under the rug. I did my research and I said, well, wouldn't they have, some data on why these Black youth are killing themselves? But no, I saw a little tiny article that suggests that maybe because Black people didn't really medicate their children, they started medicating their children. And as you know, when a child or adult is medicated, there could be suicidal thoughts and things like that. So I saw this tiny article saying that Black youth that are medicated may be getting ignored. They're not paying attention to the fact that they may be suicidal and they're killing themselves. Why is there not a strategy to find out when Black people were the least likely with everything that happened with Black people to kill themselves? But why all of a sudden our youth are dying now? And then there's nothing aggressively, there's nothing in place aggressively trying to find out, because if it was any other race of people, they would be aggressively trying to find out, why are youth killing themselves? What is going on? So we have to talk about we have to look at the whole story. We have to read the whole book. We can't just look at the behavior. Oh, they're acting like that. Well, how would you act?
Mm-hmm.
if you've been through years of trauma?
That's
How
right.
would you act if you're going through structural and systematic trauma? How would you act when society looks at you in a way as on the lowest totem pole, when people speak to you about your culture and it's always negative? You're either
Yes.
an entertainer
Always
who goes
negative.
back to the minstrel shows, or
Yes.
you're just you're a menace to society.
That's right. That's right. And we believe it. And we believe it. And once you believe it, you the way you act. Even I've seen, when I go to on outings, I see how exciting or excited people are when they take their children to some of these things that have no bearing with their Africanness, and they teach them how to become glorified, you know. Uh, well, I don't even know the word I'm trying to. They become glorified slaves because the only thing that matters to them is how European, they look. I was watching a show yesterday, and this is a star, a young woman she's actually about 28 years old, but she looks like she's three. Or no, she looks like she's 5 years old. Okay, so she's a Nigerian movie star, and so she was playing the role of a child that came back from London or something like that, and she was all dressed up, and then she had her doll, and her doll was a white doll. Now, please understand, I have no problems with that. Some children like different dolls, that sort of thing. But if you are going to make an impact in the hearts and minds of children out there, if that young woman is supposed to represent a child, let them know that it's okay to have something that looks like them. Because you say, monkey see, monkey do. Whatever we see, we do. Human beings are like that. You do and see, you see and you do. So the children who are watching that, they're going to see, and then the next thing, when you give them a black doll, they don't want it. They don't want it. Now, somebody says, well, I know some white children who have white dolls. Yeah, but they've already been programmed that they're okay, who they are. That's just an extra. That's just a little hobby you've got. You got to have the Asian, you've got to have the black, you got to have a diversity in your dolls. But in terms of them knowing who they are, they already know that. But I'm talking about your own children who don't know that. And all they know is that they're ugly. Well, you saw the doll, yes. That's part of history. We kind of need to look at those things and the implications that they have even to this day. The black child is not carrying a white doll because, I want diversity in my dolls. No, for the most part, she's carrying it because to her, that's what's fancier. That's what looks better. That gives an image of that I'm of wealth, of goodness, or all that sort of thing. Even if you ask them about compare them what a black doll and a white doll, they'll tell you that the black doll is evil, that kind of thing. So there is so much working on the minds of our children that is not in allowing them to bring out the best of who they are. So that's where we have to come into play. I'm happy. I'm really happy on this thing that's going on in schools. I'm really happy on that, and I just want parents to know, my children are who they are today because we taught them at home. Mm-hmm. You never back down on who you are. That's who you are. You don't have the right to undermine anyone else's authority to be who they are, but don't allow yourself to be undermined either. Don't discard who you are. Don't put down who you are so that you can glorify somebody else, because you become a glorified servant. I don't care what kind of car you drive. I don't care what kind of house you live. As long as you look down on your blackness and all that it entails, you're just a glorified servant. You're just a mouthpiece for other people. So you have to be careful. So what they're doing now, when you tell children of African descent that their history is irrelevant, oh, come on. What do you think those kids are thinking? Even the young man during the news, it was a news article, news program they were doing, and I was just looking at this little black guy who was talking, I felt so bad for him. You could see how it was weighing down on him, that they were telling him that he's not worthy. He's not worthy for other people to learn about. So it is so critical that as we do all these things we do, that we bring it home. Bring it home. Make sure if they're not learning it anywhere. Black history is not them just taking all those pictures and splattering it on the walls. Well, they were doing that. They can't even do that now. You can't even show in Florida. You can't show, a teacher cannot show the pictures of Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, all the African greats. So if you can't show that, what does it matter then if your child becomes achieves anything in Florida? What does that mean? He's still irrelevant. That's what they're telling you. Because when somebody achieves as high as a presidency and you can't talk about him, what does it matter that your child learns in that school? He's inconsequential. So Black history must not be just this one day that we celebrate Black achievement. We must celebrate it every day and celebrate it inside, working with those children who will become the future people that the rest of the world will celebrate. Who knows? You got 3 children. Who knows if they are going to be the ones that their pictures are going to be on some hallway in a school. But if you don't teach them, if you don't tell them to value who they are and teach them how to do so, that may not happen. The world, I always say to people, have something that you say to yourself, affirmations that you give to yourself before you step out that door. Tell the world who you are before the world tells you who you are, because the world is not interested in telling you the truth about who you are. They will lie to you, bring you down, competition everywhere. So our children must be prepared that you have to do it 365 days a year, not just that 1 month. Because February 8th, it's all over. We go back to the same old way. So our program is one hour only. So can you give us a passing thought?
I'll say this, like it was said, we must start with us. We must start with our families, teaching our history and our value to our children. If our families don't know, to our families, making it and important to teach that to us. Also, it is very important that we stand up as leaders. We need more strong leaders. I remember my grandmother going into the store, and if she did not see Black dolls, she would call the manager. I've seen her call the manager and ask them, why don't you have Black dolls in this store? Why is there only white dolls here? Is white people the only people here in America? You should have Black dolls here. Black people helped to build America.
Yes.
So we must stand up. We must not walk in fear. That's one thing. And I'll say that was installed from my grandmother. I saw so many times. We went anywhere. We would drive down south when we were going to see our family in Mississippi, and we would go to the most remote restaurant at the side of the road where these people probably never seen a Black person in their life. And my grandmother would stand up with confidence and say, I can go anywhere I want to go. And you're not.
That's right.
If they were walking too close to that back of that restaurant, she would say, I know you're not walking me to the back of the restaurant. We must start to stand up for ourselves and continue the fight for who we are. And gain our reparations and justice for our ancestors.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was just going to be a conversation, and now we really got into it, and I got so much out of it from what you said. And I hope that the individuals who watch this video, because I'm going to circulate it today, gained quite a bit from here. Let's just be reminded that we are what life is all about. We are survivors. If you look in the history, if you look in your history, if you take the time and stop wallowing in self-pity because somebody said something about who they think you are, nobody can define you but yourself. If you take the time and look back, you see you come from a long line of surviving people, a long life of survivors. It is time to move forward during this Black History Month It is time for us to be reminded that we are who we are looking for. We are the powerful beings and souls that the Creator made us to be. That is what we are. We made many inventions. We are a part of history that nobody can hide, even if they try to. We've created many great men and women in every sector of life, and we continue to excel. But it is imperative to remember that the greatest invention is you. You are the greatest invention. You, Black man, you, Black woman, you, Black child. And how you carry that invention is what the world will see. So show the world who you are. Show the world that the best of you is here, standing in front of them. Celebrate Black history by just being. The late, great Alice Walker reminded us to use February as a reminder that we are the ones we are looking for. So celebrate all that you are and all that you will become. I thank all of you, wherever you are going to be today, for joining us today. I thank you, Dr. Monet, for being here today. You always have a lot to share, and we are always enriched by your presence. So thank you so much for being here. And the rest of you, thank you, whoever you are, wherever you are. Remember, celebrate Black history, but don't celebrate it in a way that just celebrates money, in a way that celebrates the commercialization of Black history. Celebrate Black history by bringing it home, being it. You are Black history, and we celebrate you. Thank you so very much, and you have a wonderful day. Say an ashe.
Ashe.